Today, we're going to dive into one of the biggest, most fascinating questions in modern science: human cloning. And to really get our heads around it, we're going to start with a story, a hypothetical story that gets right to the heart of what it means to be an individual. So imagine this, and it's tough, but bear with me. A young couple goes through the absolute worst thing imaginable. Their one-year-old son tragically dies in an accident. Just like that, their entire world is turned upside down. And in that deep, dark place of grief, they remember something they read, an article about scientists who are working on human cloning. And this tiny, desperate seed of an idea starts to grow. What if? What if they could somehow bring their son back? And that leads them and us to this huge question, doesn't it? It's a question that sits right at the messy intersection of love, loss, and the absolute limits of science. Could cloning really, truly be the answer? So, fueled by that grief and hope, the parents decide to do something pretty radical. They arrange to have some of their baby's cells frozen, clinging to the idea that one day technology might be able to create a clone, a perfect copy of the son they lost. Okay, now I have to stop here and make something absolutely clear. This is a thought experiment. It's not a real case. We're just using this story as a way to explore the very real scientific and ethical questions that cloning brings up. And that leads us right to the core of it all. If these parents could succeed, how exact would that copy actually be? I mean, is a clone a perfect duplicate, a replacement, or is it something else entirely? Well, the science is really clear on this one. A clone is not a resurrection. You can't bring back the person who was lost. What the process does is create a new life, but the original person, they're gone. Let's break this down to the most basic physical level. The original child's body was made up of a very specific collection of molecules. The clone, on the other hand, would be a brand new being, built from entirely different molecules. Right from the start, they are two separate physical entities. So, the crucial point to understand is that a clone would be its own unique person, not some kind of carbon copy. And this is basically guaranteed by three major factors that make a true duplicate impossible. First up, let's talk genes. Now, you might think the main DNA, the stuff in the nucleus, is a perfect copy. And it is, but that's not the whole story. See, a clone has to grow in a donor egg, and that egg has its own tiny bit of genetic material in something called the mitochondria. So right from the get-go, the clone's genetic makeup is already slightly different. All right, the second major difference is all about those 9 months before birth. The environment inside the womb has a huge impact on how we develop, and no two pregnancies are ever exactly the same. I mean, just think about all the different things going on in there. The mother's diet, her stress levels, which affect hormones, any medications she might take. I mean, the list goes on and on. All these things shape the developing fetus in very unique ways. And here's a great way to think about it. Identical twins develop in the same womb at the same time, so they share that prenatal environment. But a clone? It would be gestated years later, maybe even in a different mother. The in-womb experience would be completely different. And then there's the third factor, and honestly, this might be the biggest one of all: life itself. Everything that happens to you after you're born, every friend you make, every book you read, every scraped knee, all of that is what shapes the person you become. You know, this point really hits home when you think about identical twins. Even with the exact same DNA, growing up in the same house at the same time, they still become distinct individuals with their own unique personalities and quirks. A clone raised years apart would have an even more different life experience, for sure. So, when you add up all these factors, the slightly different genetics, the different prenatal environment, and the completely different life experiences, the conclusion becomes pretty undeniable. So let's go back to our hypothetical parents. The heartbreaking truth is that what they would get is a new child, a child who might look incredibly similar, but who would be fundamentally a different person. Think of it as a delayed twin, not a replacement. This new child would have its own thoughts, its own personality, its own dreams and fears. It would be its own person, not some kind of vessel to carry the identity of the child who was lost. And all the parents' love and expectations would be placed on this new, unique individual. And really, this all leaves us with a pretty profound question to chew on. If not even a perfect genetic copy can truly replicate a person, well, what does that tell us about what actually makes you, you?
What is that special something, that essence of our identity that can never, ever be duplicated?